Okay, this is Jeff Head from the Jeff Head YouTube channel on modern military aircraft and ships. Ships mainly in 1/350th scale, although some are in 1/700th. And the planes predominantly in 1/72nd scale. But I wanted to take a look at three of the modern Russian aircraft, which are good aircraft. We'll start here in the middle with the Su-35S, which is a development of the Su-27MS and the Su-33 as well as the Su-37. And what you end up here with is a very potent, heavily armed, highly maneuverable 4.5 generation aircraft. It's not a stealthy aircraft. However, in the hands of a good pilot and at knife fight range, it is a very good aircraft. Let's pick it up and look on the bottom here. Look at the loadout this aircraft can carry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weapons on this aircraft. And so it's mainly an air superiority aircraft with a air-to-ground role, but principally air superiority, and it can carry a very heavy load in that regard. It also has engines that are able to change, able to turn, and it gives them a engine multi-instance maneuverability to turn those engines up and down, and just improves the maneuverability of that aircraft. Very beautiful aircraft, but it's not stealthy, and that hurts the Russians. Next to it over here we have the Su-34, and this is their new strike aircraft, a very beautiful aircraft, and also, once again, very heavily armed. But you'll notice the cockpit, instead of one pilot in front and one in back, they are side by side, and back behind them there is a small head, a small bathroom, so that they can relieve themselves on long missions. I put the refueling probe out on this aircraft so that you can see how they would use this aircraft to refuel on long flights. And again, if we turn this aircraft over, we see that it too carries a very heavy load of weaponry. You know, many bombs and long-range anti-surface missiles, as well as air-to-air missiles. It's a multi-role aircraft that can carry 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 weapons again. And built very heavily and very capable of doing its job. It's got a long tail section there carrying a lot of electronics. Both of these two aircraft have good Russian electronics in them. Perhaps not as good as U.S. electronics, but certainly in the hands of the right pilot. And Russia does train pretty heavily its pilots. A very dangerous aircraft in both instances there. The problem is the Russians' economy is not in good shape. Their principal export is energy. In the United States now, with a president who has removed a lot of needless regulations and opened up the both the search for and the production of oil, gas, and coal, has put the United States in a position where it is not only totally energy independent, but is the largest producer of all three of those energy commodities. And that's hurting the Russians because allies of ours who have had to in the past rely on Russia for their energy needs can now turn to the United States, get a better deal, and work with their allies as opposed to working with a country that at best would be said to be a competitor of theirs. And that's hurt Russia. For example, the Su-35S there, they have about 110 of them, maybe 130. The Su-34, they have about 140 or 150 aircraft. And the build rate is very slow. Now let's turn to their look at the future, which is a nice look. This is their Su-57, and it is a 5th generation stealth aircraft. The first prototype on this aircraft, let's pick it up, show you the bottom again. This aircraft, in between the inlets here, has two fairly large internal weapons bays. They can carry up to 8 weapons, as I understand it. And that's a good load for weapons bays on a stealth aircraft. That means with those 8 weapons, they remain completely stealthy. And that equals the the F-22 loadout capability. It's very strong stealth characteristics to the fuselage of this aircraft. They built 10 prototypes and tested them, and it took them 10 years. But now in 2019, last year, they put out their first 2, and I think they have 2 more now, initial production aircraft that are either already at initial operation capability or soon will be there. I know for a fact that at least 2, if not all 4, went to Syria. Now, they launched some cruise missiles. There are no enemy stealth or other kind of aircraft really in Syria to fight, although I know it on good authority that there were some run-ins with F-22s in Syria. My understanding is that purely from a long-distance detection role, the United States was able to detect the Su-57 before they were detected. And I believe that one of the reasons is right back here. If you'll recall and can go up and look at the videos I have out on the F-22, the F-22 hides its infrared signature very well, and the Russians would be advised to hide those a little better, because those engines, even though they are variable movement engines, are going to show up on the infrared detection capabilities of aircraft like the F-22 and the F-35. And showing up at distance is not a good thing for a stealth aircraft. And the F-22 is probably more maneuverable than this aircraft, or they're very maneuverable Su-35S aircraft. The F-22 has been designed to be that way. The F-35 is very good at maneuverability, but not quite as good as the F-22 and perhaps the Su-35S. But they have to get into close range for that to come and become any good for them. And with the range of the AMRAAM and its hit ratio and the sensor fusion of the F-35, they're likely not to get the chance to get that close. Nonetheless, these aircraft are very decent aircraft, and they represent the knife's edge of the Russian capability, and they are well designed, heavily armed, very maneuverable, And these two over here, which are in production, are very strong aircraft. This one here, which is just going into production, was initially a joint operation with the Indians in the TA-50. And the Indians are going to build theirs, but the last couple of years, actually 3 or 4 years, they diverged from the Russian development. There were 12 to 14 things specifically that the Indians wanted in their TA-50 that the Russians did not necessarily want in the Su-57. And so there was a divergence in that. And so the Indian funding, which went into the start of this aircraft and helped the Russians significantly, is not extending all the way to the end, because the TA-50 has taken a different path in its development to get the specific things that the Indians wanted. Nonetheless, the Russians are very capable in aircraft design and have produced aircraft that prove it, much the same way as the Chinese have. The Chinese are a little further along in their stealth aircraft J-20 capability. We have a video out on that as well. But I wanted to present these Russian aircraft in video format on the channel that we have, and so we have done that. And I have to say the Russian build, as do the United States, but the Russian build beautiful and very effective aircraft, and these three are certainly three of those. Here on the right side, the Su-34, in the middle, the Su-35S, and to the left, the Su-57 fifth generation stealth aircraft of the Russians. And the Russians, the Chinese, the United States are joining a exclusive club in that order. The Indians will have one. And of course, the British Royal Navy and Royal Air Force are getting the F-35, as are many, many other countries. There will be many countries that benefit from the U.S. F-35 development, which is going strongly and meeting its pricing and its capability roles. And the F-35B especially is being utilized by those countries: Japan, Korea, potentially Australia, India, Italy, Spain, the Royal Navy, for fifth generation stealth aircraft on their jump jet carriers, which is going to give them a very big leg up on the development that the Chinese are doing to develop their, and I have to say, their fairly amazing bootstrapping of their carrier and amphibious assault capabilities and all of the escorts that go with them. But they are still behind in nuclear submarines to keep up with those and defend them. And now with the F-35B, they are falling behind in the aircraft that they fly off of those. But that's in other videos that you can check out on our channel. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends you're welcome to get them on and join with us. And hope you have a good evening this evening in April. Thank you very much. This is Jeff Head. Good night.